The Cosy, the affectionate name for a Ford RS Cosworth, and when I hear it, my mind always bounces straight to this car. Some cars are capable of taking you back to really specific moments in time. The Ford Sierra RS Cosworth grabs me by the collar and just hurls me back to a time when 200 brake horsepower was absolutely insane for a normal road car, and when most cars weighed under 1300 kilograms without it being an actual surprise. This is the RS 500 model, which makes it a mite more special than most of them. Regular cars came with around about 204 to 208 brake horsepower, but the RS 500 shipped with 224. So that 500 was not a brake horsepower figure, but it was a reference to how many of these particular special editions were made. But more on that in a little bit. There are specific parts that let you know that this is indeed an RS 500. That double-decked whale-tail rear spoiler, those additional slats in the front grille to allow for more cooling for the extra horsepower it produced, and of course, it had RS 500 written down the side. What this mod is a wonderful slice of nostalgia. The creator really took some time to add some really cheeky little touches that bring this car to life. There's that rare 3-spoke steering wheel, the Ford radio and tape deck with the graphic equalizer that brought back some memories, as did the definitive pattern on those Recaro sport seats. We've even been left an owner's brochure, but no box of tissues. Sure, let's get out and see what sort of trouble we can get into with this 1980s hooligan. Now, I never actually got to drive one of these, so it really does feel quite cool to be sat in this. Easy out. Let's see what she's about. Chirping. Lots of chirps and bangs. Okay, let's get back to that RS 500 name, because there's a short story about that. Now, in the early 80s, there was a chap called Stuart Taylor who landed the job as the head of Ford Motorsport in Europe, as you do. Shortly after hanging his coat on the coat rack and sipping a cup of tea, he realised Ford hadn't been winning anything in that space, and he'd need to pull his finger out, get some stuff done. So he had a word with their mates over at Cosworth about building an engine for them that was going to give them half a chance to actually start doing some winning. 2 engines are what we need, they said. 180 brake horsepower for the road and 300 for the track. Cosworth were like, yeah, cool, we've got this. But we've got some conditions. 180 brake horsepower, that's for kids, it's for infants. So we won't be doing that. 204 is what you're going to get, and 15,000 of them is how many you're going to buy from us. Fair enough, said Ford. 10,000 more than we actually need, but we're Ford, we'll do something with them. And that something turned out to be the Ford Sierra Sapphire 4-door Cosworth. So, cheers Cosworth. Now eventually in 1986, the Cosworth, or the Sierra Cosworth, eventually rolled off the production line. 5,545 of those were made, but 500 of those were sent to Tickford. That's Aston Martin Tickford. Now, they updated the engine in many ways, and it came out with 224 brake horsepower, that double-deck rear wing that we saw at the beginning, and revised front bumpers to enhance the cooling. Loads of updates. They made exactly 500 of these. All of these were right-hand drive, and they were only available in the United Kingdom, because the UK was the biggest market for that kind of car. Now, originally, all 500 were going to be black, but in reality it turned out they made 56 white ones and 52 just like this one in Moonstone Blue. There you go. That is a very short story on the RS 500. One thing it does feel is light. These older cars never carried too much weight, and this is really well represented in this mod. Easy, easy. Okay, so it's time to hand the virtual keys back on this classic legend. Time to round up what we think about this little download. I really love the attention to detail on this car. All of those intricate little bits, the switch gear, the stereo, the seat, the patterns, the brochure, amazing. And it drives just as I would expect it to as well. It's so much fun, it's immense fun in fact. And it's a classic Ford RS, what's not to love? On the flip side, the power figures for this car are actually wrong. It's an RS 500 model, as we said a little bit earlier, so it should be generating 224 brake horsepower. This is running just over 200, which would make it an ordinary Cosworth. And there are some other strange flat textures that are going on in here, like the air vents. I've never really seen anything like this in a mod before, where they're effectively images that are placed straight on top. And you'd only really notice this if you're driving in VR. And I'm not a modder, so I can't speak to how hard it would be to actually model those things. I'm just happy that the mod exists. I'll tell you what is great about this car, is that it actually comes as a pack. So not only do you get this road car, you get the Group A spec, you get a DTM spec, rally spec, drift spec, rally cross spec. So instantly, those mute points that I mentioned, they're muted. You should nip over to Race Department and get yourself a teleportation to the 1980s when you download this. This car, in all of its specs, is completely worth the drive, and it's a blast here in this free roam layout of Hradek. What I wouldn't mind seeing is what sort of score it would achieve over at Simracing 604 on the Mike score. If you're a petrol head like me, you'll know about Doug DeMuro's Doug score, and what Mike's done is a similar rating scale for sim cars. So if you're not already watching Mike, obviously go and watch Mike, and Mike, maybe this is one for the Mike score. It'll be rare to see an RS 500 out on the Angeles Crest Highway. Anyway, that's it for this Dre Drives. Thank you for coming on the ride. Until the next one.